Hey guys, I'm Elizabeth McCravey, a website designer and business coach for entrepreneurs and your host for the Breakthrough Brand podcast, the show that's all about pulling back the curtain on how to actually build a successful business. I don't skim the surface around here. If you want a deep dive into the nitty-gritty details of what it takes to run a successful business and stand out in a crowd, you're in the right place. After creating a multiple six-figure-a-year website design business in my 20s, I'm ready to share everything I've learned and everything I'm still learning because I believe the keys to building a thriving business should never be a secret. Here you'll find episodes that are actionable, direct, and fun, like friends chatting business over coffee, and a fresh, honest take on the reality of being an entrepreneur. If you're ready to master online marketing, branding, website design, mindset, and business strategy, then this is the podcast for you. It's time to build your breakthrough brand. Let's do this. All right, let's talk about beta testing an offer. What that means, pros and cons, why I personally did not want to do it, but did, and how it ended up being the best possible decision I could have made for my business. So I'll be doing another episode in a few weeks where I'm going to talk about a full launch recap for my Booked Out Designer beta course launch. So in that episode, I'm going to share like the ins and out of how the launch went, what all we did, some insider information, you could say, about how the course went, how the launch went rather, and all of that good stuff. But for now, I want to as a prequel to that, basically, talk about how this launch even happened, because I actually did not intend to do a beta launch. I didn't want to. I thought it was a bad idea, if I'm being honest, and I was super resistant to it. And basically, over a year ago, when I decided, okay, I'm officially going to start working on my course for designers, I also had decided, in that same moment, I'm not going to beta launch it. I'm going to create the entire thing start to finish, and I'm going to do a release, and that's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to make the whole thing first. And I'm so glad I changed my mind about that. So in this episode, I'm just wanting to share why I decided to pivot, what beta launching even is. If you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, Elizabeth, that's kind of confusing. I'm going to share pros and cons of beta launching versus making the whole thing and launching it model. And then I want to share why I had a change of heart and how it went for me. What were those pros of doing it this way, and how can you apply that in your business to whatever it is you're creating, whether it's a course, a membership site, a new service offer, even you can apply all this information to so many different kinds of things. So this is a fun one. If you are launching anything in your business ever, I think you want to tune in here because there's a lot you can learn from my experience. This is the stuff, you guys, in the trenches I've been learning recently. This is all changes I've made literally in 2021 so far as when I had the change of heart, which I'm going to share that story. But this is all stuff I'm learning that I think you can learn from right now alongside with me. And this episode is going to be super conversational. So less 1, 2, 3, 4 points, but more conversational. Although I will be sharing 7 reasons you should beta launch at the end if you're 7 arguments for it. But it's going to be more conversational and jam-packed with tips about launching and creating new offers. So I'm just so excited to share what I've been learning with you. All right, so before we dive into all the beta launching stuff, first, I want to just define what I'm even talking about if you are new here or if you missed seeing stuff about my launch. So I have a new course that launched in February, at the end of February of 2021, and it's for designers and called Booked Out Designer. And it's a business course for how to run your design business, the art of working with clients, pricing yourself, marketing yourself, networking, so much more. And I have been dreaming of this course in a legitimate way for probably a year and a half to 2 years, and longer than that I've thought I'd want to make a course. And in August of 2020, so months ago now, I did a podcast episode about how I was working on this course and kind of gave an insider scoop of what my process was going to be and things like that. So that's episode 40. If you want to go back to that one, I actually have not listened to it since I literally recorded it in August last year. But I will say, I know in that episode, I talk about how I will not be doing a beta launch, and I talk about why. So I probably need to go back and listen to what I even said there. But this is my follow-up change of heart and here's how it went kind of episode. So to go back to what the course is and all that, I'm still not done creating the course, hence the beta launch, which I'm going to tell you guys what a beta launch even is if you're not sure in a moment. But I do have 39 amazing designers who are in the founding members group for the course. So So they are those beta launch people. I'm calling it founding members because I like that term better. And I feel like it better defines what it is. But they're the beta members, you could say. And the course sold out because since it's a beta, I had a limited number of spots I wanted to accept. I wanted to do 30 spots. And they get a lot of extra perks, which I'm going to be talking about. But it sold out in an hour, kind of an hour and a half, you could say, but really an hour. And it filled up halfway, guys, halfway full in 10 minutes. And it was wild. And a reason it's wild, which some of you who bought, y'all all were like, I knew it was going to sell out. That's why I bought it so fast. And you guys were all right, but I had prepared myself for a week-long launch. Like we had all the emails written and scheduled. I had all the social media posts ready to go. Like I thought I had 5 days to fill it. And I did think it would fill. So I do want to say that. I thought it would fill for sure, but I did not think it would fill in like an hour. Or really a lot of that, like towards the end of the hour is when it slowed down, but the majority of it was in like 45 minutes or so. So anyway, it was wild. And again, there's going to be a whole episode coming about that soon. If you want to hear more and you're like, oh, that's interesting, tell me all about your launch. That will be coming in a few episodes from now. But it was a huge success. It totally passed my expectations. It is for sure the most money I've made in a day and certainly in an hour for sure. Not the biggest launch I've had, but like definitely in like a day for sure. And the people in the group, oh my gosh, they are so perfect for the program. I could not be more thrilled. They're like exactly who I thought of as like ideal clients, ideal customers for the course. So that's been super amazing to see and getting to know these women and one man in it, getting to know these designers has been so cool and like helping and supporting them and all of that. So that's what it is. That's what we're talking about here. And again, it sold out really quick and really, really exciting at that beta launch price point. So I want to talk through how I decided to beta launch because I went from, ew, beta launches are gross, I'm never going to do that, to I'm doing this and it's perfectly exactly what I need. And that was in like a 5-day period where that distinction happened. So it's fun to talk about to me because I think like, again, this could be your experience too. And I just want you guys to know like what the thought process is like in these big business decisions we have to make. So first, just really briefly, what is beta launching? If you don't know, simply it means, like in my personal opinion of how to define it, it means selling something before it's been created. So a good example of this that we are all familiar with is Kickstarter. So with Kickstarter, you come up with a business idea, you maybe even make a prototype image, you talk about it, you see if anyone's willing to pay for it. And then if they are, you make the product for them and they've already put the money down and you deliver the product to that group. And like basically those people are helping you launch your company. If you do the Kickstarter and maybe only 10 people say they'd buy it, you aren't going to make the product and you send that money back to those people. So it's a great way to test the idea before you spend a lot of time, money, and energy creating it. So that's the same concept. Kickstarter, same concept as what we call beta launching in online business. And oftentimes a beta launch can mean that it's free to a certain number of people. That's a really common way of I'm accepting 30 people free in exchange for like feedback and helping me create the program, that sort of concept. That is not how I did it. I knew I did not want to make a free offer and I knew I didn't need to do that, but that's a common way you see it, but that's not always what it means. So I think that's another thing that's helpful to define because sometimes people hear beta launch and they're like, ew, I want to sell my offer. Like I don't want to give it away for free. I did do a discount though from what it's going to be later on in the public launch, which I'll talk about that too. Beta launching also means there are often other perks involved since they won't be getting the product delivered for a set period of time. So it could be like a few months until they get it delivered. With something like Kickstarter, I mean, gosh, it could be like a year before they're going to get whatever it was that they invested in and put money down saying they wanted. So it totally varies. But a huge pro of beta launching is that you can validate your idea. That's the biggest reason I hear people say, especially in our online business world, that you should beta launch. So if you're like thinking, I really want to make a course, I want to make a membership site, I want to make this new product about whatever this thing is, but I'm not sure if anyone wants to learn that from me. I'm not sure if anyone would even buy that. Do a beta launch. And if no one buys, or like, let's say only 2 to 3 people buy, and you said like, I'm only going to do this if 10 people buy or 20 or whatever, then that's your answer. And you can move move on with your life without having wasted hours and days and months of your life creating something that no one was going to buy. So it's a huge, I literally would say time, energy, and money saver. Like all three of those categories is what it can save you. So that's the biggest reason people talk about beta launching. I'm going to talk about this in a minute, but I did not feel like I needed to validate the idea with the beta launch, which is why I was one of the reasons I was reluctant to it. So anyway, I'll talk about that in a minute, but that's beta launching for you. And I knew all this before I started to work on my course, but I still didn't want to beta launch. So I knew all the pros. I'm very familiar with online course stuff, even before making this course myself. And so why was I not wanting to do it? Now when I look back, I'm like, I was being silly, but my reasons actually made a lot of sense at the time and they still make sense to me, but I'm so glad I changed my mind about all of it. Okay, so now I want to share with you, though, the 3 reasons why I didn't want to beta launch and why maybe you also don't want to if you are in the course or product creation mode right now in your business, why you might be resisting this. Maybe you can relate to some of these. I feel like people do not talk about this stuff enough because we're all just beta launching's the best. And I feel like I would have benefited from hearing someone else say, hey, I'm raising my hand. I agree with you on all this, but here's why I still did it. So that's what I'm hoping this can provide for you. So first reason I didn't want to, I did not feel the need to validate my idea through selling it before I created it. So most of the time when people talk about how great beta launching is, a huge reason you're going to hear people say is because if no one wants it, you don't waste your time, energy, and money on it, like I was saying a moment ago. And here's what I knew. I already knew people wanted this from me. Because I was talking to you guys about it, I did phone calls on Zoom, so not on the phone, but Zoom video calls with about 12 designers last year who were interested in the course idea, and I asked them questions about what they want and price points and what would sell it to them and what they would dislike if they were to buy something like this. I was working on making sure this was validated. I had a wait list building for again a year with people specifically opting in saying, I want info on this course when it's released. I was talking about the price point beforehand and knowing that was not turning people away. So I already knew that the idea was valid. So people saying, Elizabeth, you got to validate your idea. I'm like, I already feel like it's valid, which I do not mean that in an overly cocky way or anything like that. I just know my business. I know the people I'm trying to serve. And that was something that people kept saying to me. I was are you sure you don't want to beta launch it? What if no one buys it? And I'm I really do think people are going to buy this. So I appreciate that, but I also disagree. So that was a big one for me. And again, even if you agree with that, that does not mean you don't need to beta launch. So that was one. Second one was I didn't feel like I needed the money to fund my time spent working on the course. So another pro beta launching is that you get paid and then you can take time away from the other things in your business to create the program, course, whatever it is. You're funded for those months working on it because you had all this money come in up front. And I didn't feel like I needed that because of the way cash flow is in my business with my template shop. And so simply put, that was not a motivator for me. I was just yeah, that's cool, but that is not a reason enough. Going back to you're not convincing me. That wasn't enough of a reason. Third thing, it felt sleazy to me to sell something that wasn't created yet. And this was probably the biggest one I struggled with. I just really always want to have happy customers and clients. That's huge for me. I want to underpromise and overdeliver. And in my mind, a beta launch felt harder to do that in. I was thinking are people going to be disappointed that they don't get it immediately? What if I don't communicate that clearly enough that they're not getting it immediately? What if they feel like I'm taking their money and then leaving them to hang? I hated that one so much. So that was a struggle with me. And I'll be sharing in a minute. And my client and friend, Rick Mulready, is who helped me get past that feeling. So shout out to him. Hope he ends up listening to this episode. But basically, I just felt like the idea of creating the whole massive thing and selling it after was the thing I wanted to do. So that was my plan. I was going to, spend however long it took me. At this point, it was going to take me 20 years, honestly. But I was going to create the whole thing. And this is a big course. It is 9 content modules and then 3 modules that are coaching call replays and stuff like that. So it's a lot of content and it's a massive course. That was another thing people started advising me on of maybe don't make it so big, but this is the amount of information I want to give in it. So anyway, interrupting this episode with a suggestion for the small business owners listening. Ever wonder what you should do for healthcare when you and your spouse are both self-employed, so there's no work-provided health insurance to participate in? Well, when my husband Adam joined me in the entrepreneurial job space over 4 years ago, we joined Christian Healthcare Ministries instead of getting traditional health insurance. And it was the best decision for us, especially in these years of growing and raising a family while also running multiple businesses. CHM is a health cost-sharing ministry and is a faith-based alternative to health insurance. We did tons of research before choosing CHM, and if you know me and Adam, you know we are all about doing the math when making big or small financial decisions. And even though it's not insurance, CHM shares 100% of eligible medical bills, which is more than the typical 70 or 80% of medical bills paid for by insurance companies. All sharing is determined by the CHM guidelines, which you can check out before and after joining. And for the mamas and mamas to be listening, you truly cannot find a better healthcare option for maternity care. I had a vaginal delivery and a C-section and birth center care and hospital care between my 2 pregnancies and births, and it was all 100% shared for. And outside of birth, we've had our share of emergency room visits and procedures as a family, and those costs were all shared by members at Christian Healthcare Ministries, leaving us only paying our monthly contribution. CHM is less expensive month to month than insurance, and because there's no network, you can choose your care with whichever providers best fit your family. I seriously just cannot recommend Christian Healthcare Ministries enough. You've got to check them out. Go to elizabethmccravey.com/CHM for more information. Also putting that link in the show notes, elizabethmccravey.com/CHM. Now back to the episode. That was my plan though, and my plan was not working. And here's some reasons it wasn't working. The course never felt that urgent, and it was really hard for me to make time to work on it and get momentum going. I have so many other things I do in my business, and even though everyone wants to think that like having a shop like templates is completely passive, it is not. And there's always work I'm doing there. So it felt hard to be like motivated to work on this course and get momentum on it because I'm like, I have all this other stuff I'm doing. I'd also decided in my mind, like I said, that I wanted to like create the whole thing first. And my method was going to be to outline the whole thing. So like every single module, every single lesson within each module, all 9 content modules. So like outline the whole thing and then go back through the whole thing and make slides for it, and then go back through the whole thing and record it. So I was thinking of it as like one large project instead of dividing it into like smaller sections, and that was keeping me stuck. And the real reason I would say why it was actually keeping me stuck personally is because I'm so used to podcasting. And with podcasting, the way I do it is I have a content idea. I outline it, and then I execute it, and then I move on to the next idea. It does not work well for me to like outline a bunch of episodes and then record them all. I like to like get the outline done, be like fresh and passionate about whatever it is that I'm talking about, and then record it. And then I can like take it out of my mind basically and move on to something else. And that's totally not how everyone works. But I know that from, however many, like 110 podcasts at this point, that's how my mind works with it. And so my method with this course was like completely ruining that because I was trying to do like basically the exact opposite. So I was holding myself up because when I'd finished an outline, I felt like I couldn't leave it because it didn't feel complete until I executed the idea. So I was stuck because of this. I had a course that I'd been quote unquote working on for like a year, but I didn't have anything more than a bunch of random outlines. And I did have so I had here are all the modules. I had here are all the lessons that are going to go in them. And then I had outlines for a bunch of those lessons, but not all of them. And that was basically it. And then all the while, I was getting messages constantly from designers who were interested in the course, and they were asking like, Elizabeth, when's it going to launch? I don't plan financially to buy it. That was one of the messages actually, in this amazing woman who sent me that message is like one of the people who ended up being a beta member. But she messaged me and was like, hey, new year, 2021, I'm like planning out in advance the different things I'm going to invest in this year. When is your course launching? How much is it going to be? And I'm like, that's a brilliant question. And I love that she's planning it and not planning on making like just a rash, like heat of the moment decision, but she's planning her finances for her business. So smart. And I wanted to tell her something. And the truth was, in that moment, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know. Like, I have no idea when it's going to launch, because I am so stuck creating it. And that was one of the things that motivated me, her literal question. So shout out to her. But anyway, so moving back onto this though, to tell you where the shift happened for me of deciding like, okay, beta launching sucks, to, hey, oh my gosh, I'm totally going to do that. So I was on a call with Rick actually to be on his podcast for a second time. We were doing an interview, talk all about his website launch and all of that fun stuff. And before we started the interview, we were just chatting, and he already knew I was working on a course for designers. And so he was like, hey, how's that going? And I was like, honestly, I'm super stuck. And I told him about like the way I was stuck and the problems I was running into. And at another point, probably last year, honestly, he had already encouraged me to do a beta launch, and I had been like, no, like, here's kind of why. And so this time again, he was like, why don't you want to do a beta launch again? Can you remind me? Because he was clearly like trying to communicate that like he thought that would help my problems here. And so I told him all of the reasons I told you, of like, the idea is valid. I don't need the money up front. It feels kind of sleazy to me. I don't want to overpromise and disappoint people. And basically, Rick reframed this whole thing for me. So he said that no, 100%, you will actually be over delivering, if anything. Like, we talked about that, and he gave me a new vision for it. So he encouraged me to do bonuses that the students will get right away when they buy in the beta. So for me, that was coaching calls. They get intimate group coaching calls leading up to when the course is released. And so that was one thing of like, give them something right then. And it's like, guys, I know some of you might be like, well, duh, that's how betas are. But like, I wasn't thinking about it like this. I was thinking about it like I'm taking the money and then saying bye for however many months and then delivering it. So that was one thing. We also talked about doing a Facebook community, and he encouraged me that I wouldn't make it free. Like, he wasn't saying I should do that, but that I could do a discount from what it will be later on, which is like a perk of buying it sooner. And that's also what I did. And we also talked about how even though I don't need the money to fund working on it, I did certainly need the motivation to get it going and a real deadline, and like people who like I can see their faces. I know who they are. They are actively waiting and excited for this. Like, having that motivation, that was what I needed. It's like I didn't need the cash flow. I needed the like people saying, hey, like, we're so excited. When is this going to be ready? So Rick and I talked about this for like 30 minutes, and then we did our podcast interview, and I said, I think about it, but I was like, whoa, that does sound way better than I thought. We did the interview and we moved on. And so that was January 14th of 2021. So not that long ago at this point. So I kept thinking about the beta launch, and I talked to Adam actually about it that night after the interview. I'm like, hey, like, here's what Rick said. Like, I thought that was really cool. I kind of liked his idea. It made me think about beta launching different. And then the following week at our team meeting, I asked Abby and Stacy what they thought about it. And I was like, here's what Rick said. Here's what Adam said. What do y'all think? And they loved it. Adam loved it. Everyone was like, yeah, you should totally be doing that. Like, why weren't you doing that in the first place? It was kind of like a consensus. It felt like no one said it to me that bluntly, but that's how it felt. So then on the 26th of January, so really not that far later, like about a little more than 10 days, I got super sick with what the doctor thought was COVID or the flu. I was also pregnant at that point, about 9 weeks along. And in reality, I did not have COVID. I did not have the flu. I didn't have strep throat. It was like literally nothing. I think it was just like the worst cold I've ever had. And I think it was like pregnancy making the cold worse. I get cold somewhat easily, but it was like worse than ever. And again, I was 9 weeks pregnant. I was feeling not only tired from pregnancy, but was also like sick as a dog, like in bed all day. I took a ton of naps those few days. And I was supposed to have been at an in-person retreat that week in Florida as like a leader at the retreat. But I had asked to do my session remotely because of like thinking about safety while traveling with COVID and so early in pregnancy, and just the fact that I was not feeling great in my pregnancy. So that felt like going away for that long felt rough. So anyway, because of all that, here I was. I had planned in my calendar 6 days with no meetings, no one expecting anything from me and my team because I was supposed to be gone at this event. But then I was also sick as a dog for the beginning of those 6 days. So I was in bed, not working, but thinking about this beta launch the whole time. So basically I like ended up with a lot of free time to think about my business with no one like asking things of me. And so I was thinking about it like, okay, is this what I want to do? So then one day during my sick girl stint, I want to say it was like the 29th of January, I started to feel a little bit better in the afternoon. It was like all of a sudden, okay, I'm not as sick. I have a little bit of energy. I'm still kind of like on the couch with my like iPad watching TV, but like I'm going to do some work. And then like at that point, I had already decided in my mind, like, okay, I'm doing this beta launch. And that afternoon, guys, I seriously still cannot believe this is how it happened for me. Because remember, I felt so stuck with this course. It was like I could not move forward at all. So in about 3 to 4 hours, I went from making zero progress on the course to having written the sales page draft, finalized the name of the course that I was still up in the air about, and created a logo for it. I chose a launch date. I picked the official price for the course, which I kind of already decided, but like I officially nailed it down. I nailed down what the payment plans would be, and I nailed down what all the bonuses would be. I wrote a script for the video that was going to go on the sales page, which I guess no one watched because everyone purchased faster than it would have taken them to watch the video. But still, I wrote that script, and all of that was in like 3 to 4 hours from my couch. So again, it's like I went from 0, which was like me sluggishly moving along, to 100 on this course. And at that point, so like I said, it was around January 29th. I picked February 22nd as the launch date. So not even a month away, just a few weeks away. And I felt like that gave me more than enough time to get everything done for the type of launch I was trying to execute, which was going to be pretty simple. You'll hear me talk about this when I do the launch recap, but I did not do webinars. I did not do Facebook ads. I was going to do an Instagram live, but it sold out so quickly that like I didn't even get to do that because I was going to do it on day 2 of the launch. But anyway, so it was very simple, and I did it. So that's why I decided. I was like, February 22nd, our next team meeting, I'm like, okay, guys, during my sick week, I went from like 0 to 100. Here's the plan. And I'm so grateful I did. So had I not done this beta launch, I believe I'd probably still be dragging my feet on the course idea. But instead, I'm sitting here right now in my office with 39 happy students who actually already have, guys, 2 content modules delivered to them, plus the intro module, which has like 1 content piece in it. But they have 2 of like the main modules delivered to them. They have 2 coaching calls under their belt. 1 at the time I'm recording this, but 2 by the time you guys hear this. And the resounding feedback I've gotten is that literally those 2 modules, I've had literally multiple students say this, are worth the cost alone that they paid. I've had other people say the coaching call, that first coaching call has been worth the cost alone. The Facebook community has been worth the cost alone. And I've realized through like those like super kind feedback, most people are sending that to me in our private Facebook group. Some people have sent it like in an Instagram DM and things like that. But I realized I was so wrong to fear not delivering to the level and the standard I have in my business, because I have very happy students who, again, like I said earlier, these people are absolutely perfect for the course. Like I could not be happier with the people who ended up in this beta program. So I share all of that to share my experience with both beta launching and then attempting not to beta launch. And I hope you got a good picture of what both those looked like for me. And I know some of you listening are a lot like me in the way you think and the way you like to run your business and stuff like that. And so that could be what you run into too, of being stagnant and stuck, but needing that motivation and that like excitement from other people who are waiting and excited for what you're working on. So I'd recommend it time and time again, even if your idea feels valid, even if you feel well-funded enough to create the course without upfront payments, it is worth it. And I didn't even realize how much I needed that push to make the content until I got the push. And then I was like, oh my gosh, like all these outlines like are turning into like final outlines, turning into slides, turning into videos. So much easier. Because remember, I was originally going to outline it all and create it all, and now I'm outlining it a module at a time. If you're curious how I solved that problem, instead of doing the whole course in its entirety, I'm doing a module in its entirety, because I do want the module. Here's let me back up a little bit. The reason I want to do the whole course in its entirety, of like outlining the whole thing and then going back, is because I had the thought of like, if I do it in sections, then I might like, get to say module 9 and I'm like, well, wait, something I'm saying here, I needed to have told people in module 2 for it to make sense. That's kind of what I was struggling with. So I needed like the bigger picture of the story, so to speak. But now instead I'm doing that by module. So actually today, probably literally right when I'm done recording this, I'm going to be working on the profitable pricing module. And a cool thing, because I have beta students, I was able to ask last week on Friday, I did a post in our group and I said, hey guys, like, here's what I'm planning to already teach in the pricing module. Because again, guys, I have outlines for this stuff. So I actually have 3 outlines already for that module that I'd already finished like at some point last year. And so I told everyone, like, here's how I'm planning to teach in it. What are your biggest pricing struggles? What are your biggest questions? What do you feel like comes easy to you with pricing? And everyone chimed in. Some people chimed in multiple times. And the coolest thing about it is some of the stuff they said I was not thinking I needed to include in the course. Not because it's too basic, but more so because like I just wasn't thinking about it. Because again, like even though we are so similar to the people we end up serving, sometimes we don't realize the problem they have as defined by them. So some of the things I was just like, oh my gosh, yeah, like I totally understand that that's a problem, something to address, but like I hadn't thought about it. So it's so helpful. And I believe the course is going to end up being 1,000 million times better long term because of these amazing 39 beta students who are helping me create it by giving their feedback and telling me the problems. They are literally representing everyone who's going to come later in the program. So that is what's been happening. So to close this episode, I want to share, I believe I have five reasons why you should consider a beta launch for your new offer from a girl who said, hello, I will never beta launch. So these are my reasons. So a few of these are going to be ones I've already talked about and a few are going to be new ones. So first one, if you aren't sure people want it. So yes, this was not my situation. Like I already said multiple times this episode, but this is a great reason. And this might be my reason later on. I totally believe that's true. I want to create more courses and programs for you all, stuff that isn't just for designers. And this might become a reason for me later on of being like, I don't know if people want that. So this is a great reason if you aren't sure. And yes, there are other ways to validate your idea outside of beta launching. Those are great too. I honestly would recommend doing it all. Like I validated my idea through a wait list, through the beta launch, and through doing one-on-one calls with 12 different people who had expressed interest in the program and asking them questions. So the truth is though, those other ideas are awesome, but like what really matters is people like saying yes to your offer with their wallets, like making an actual decision, because all day you can ask on your Instagram stories with a poll like, hey, would you buy this course if I made it? And people can mark yes, but like if they don't actually do it, it doesn't mean anything. So if you're not really sure, this is a great way to get sure. So that would be one like obvious reason that you've already heard 1,000 times probably. The second reason, if you need to be funded while you work on it, like I said earlier, depending on your business model, this could be absolutely vital to you. And that makes total sense. And this is the case for a lot of businesses, depending on how your business is structured. Third reason, and this one was like the biggest one for me, you need and want the motivation to make the thing because you're feeling stuck when you're trying to make the whole thing and then launch it. So having a deadline that not only you set for yourself, but that you've told to other people, I think is huge, because I had actually made myself multiple deadlines. Even last year at one point, I went to a coffee shop and I like mapped out how I'm going to make one module a week for this many weeks. And then like this week's I'm going to take off and this week's going to be a catch up week. And this week I can't because I'm going to do podcast batching. Like I mapped out an entire thing in a document and did not stick to any of it. And I'd stick to plenty of things in my life that I like make as goals, but could not stick to this because there are so many other distractions in our businesses. So if you want the motivation to make it, beta launching is going to be great. Fourth reason, you want live feedback from real customers on what's helpful and what they need to learn. And this is so huge because this will help you create a better offer long term. So like I was saying a moment ago of like me being able to ask, hey, what are your questions about pricing? Like what's the problems there that you're running into? Is helping me create a better program. And even outside of that, like I have a Facebook community, a private Facebook community just for the founding members. Later, when I do a public launch, we will have another Facebook community. So know that that's something that will always be a part of this program, because I believe that's so helpful to have a place to like ask questions, ask for feedback, ask the hard stuff that you don't want your ideal clients to be like reading in all the random free Facebook groups you're in. So even with those though, I learn a lot from that of seeing like, okay, what are the struggles people are posting about in the group? And most of the time I do feel like I have a solution to them, and I love being able to like help with the solution. But it's been cool seeing like, okay, what are the struggles here? And a lot of times, like I already said earlier, it's not what I thought they'd be. So that's really helpful to see. And then the fifth one, you want testimonials for your later public launch. So this is huge. With a beta launch, everyone knows, hey, there's no testimonials yet because this has not been sold yet. But if you can sell to a few people beforehand, whether that's a full group of 39, like what I'm doing, or if it's just 5 people, or if it's doing that beta launch model where maybe you give it to 5 people for free in exchange for a testimonial. Whatever it is, this will help you get testimonials for your later public launch. And that's something I'm so excited about because I feel that I'm going to continue to over deliver, and I have so many exciting things for the students. I know a lot of them are listening right now to this episode, but I'm excited to know that I'll have testimonials. I'll have success stories coming from what people are learning in this course. And there have already been some, again, like even from those 2 modules of like big breakthroughs people have had and exciting things, ways they're taking action. I mean, it's really, really cool to see. So those are the reasons you might want to consider beta launching when you weren't before. So that is it, you guys. That is my answer to should you beta launch your course, and sharing my honestly success story is what I'd call it, of like launching it and selling it out in about an hour. I'm so grateful for this. And again, stay tuned. A few weeks from now, I'm going to do a full-on launch recap and give you all the nitty-gritty details of how everything went. And I also want to encourage you, if you are someone who you're like, Elizabeth, I want to be in this course. I'm sad I missed the beta launch. I know there are a lot of people who missed out on the beta launch because of how it closed so quickly, which is literally something I'm going to talk about as one of the problems I ran into when I do my launch recap. But if you're someone who's like, oh my gosh, this sounds exciting, I want to be a part of this community, I want to learn from you in this course, definitely get on the wait list for it, because I will be launching it again this year. I'm going to be launching it before baby comes at some point this summer, and I'm really excited about that. And you can get on the wait list at elizabethmccravey.com/waitlist. And you can also get some info about the course there if you're curious of like what all modules are in it and things like that, like what exactly will you learn. That info is on the waitlist page as well. And I probably will add some testimonials. I need to do that. I already have some testimonials from these amazing students so far, so I need to add that to the waitlist page as well. But I'd love to have you in the program. So get on the waitlist page. Let me know if you have any questions. And again, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I know it was more casual. It was less like points driven, but I really hope that you learned something about launching and creating offers from it. And yeah, get excited for next week. I'll be doing a 5-year business anniversary episode to share things I've learned in 5 years building my business. And then after that, I'll be talking all about how this launch went and like giving you all the nitty-gritty details. So that's it for now. I'll talk to you guys next week. Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast today and for staying until the end. I appreciate you being here. And if you enjoyed this episode, then I want to invite you to check out my online course and coaching program for designers, Booked Out Designer. In this program, I teach you how to build a successful in-demand booked out business as a designer. You'll learn everything from the exact experience I take my clients through to things like figuring out your niche, mastering discovery calls, pricing your services for profit, creating contracts that will not cause you legal troubles, and my exact social media strategies to book clients. You even get to watch recordings of me in actual meetings with my actual clients so you can really learn through what you're seeing. We take things you're learning on this podcast and so many topics I never even cover on this show and deep dive into them. So in addition to the amazing course, the course is 9 modules of teaching with over 90 lessons. You get group coaching calls with me and access to an exclusive Facebook community of designers just like you. And fun fact, this isn't one of those kind of Facebook groups where the founder never comments on posts or you never see them in there. You'll find me there all the time, ready to help you out with any business question you have. So to get info on the course and to see when the doors will be opening again, head to elizabethmccravey.com/BOD, short for Booked Out Designer. I hope to be able to coach you and teach you inside of the course soon. And don't forget that you can subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening so that you never miss an episode. And a great way to support the show is to leave a rating and review, share it with a friend, share it on social media. All of that will help get the word out. All right, I'll see you again next week.